Tim Lerch here with a little Telecaster update. I just got a guitar I had tried before. This is a Fender Road Worm Telecaster. And when they first came out, I thought, well, I'll try them. And when I tried them, I didn't like them. They sounded good, but they played lousy. In case you don't know, the Road Worm series is made in Mexico. They're under $1,000, right around $800 or so, or at least that's where they have been. You can probably, maybe they went up a little bit, but that's what they were when they first came out. They're basically 50s type Telecasters. They make them in a couple of different colors, and I think they're making them now with the humbucker up here. The problem I had with them is that the neck was very slim and thin feeling, and they didn't do a very good job, relicking. It looked dumb. They just scrub off, the finish in random places, it seemed like. And one beef I had was the nuts were cut just horrible. So you try them out, and the nut is so high that they're out of tune in the first few frets, and they feel horrible and all that stuff. So I kind of wrote them off as being something that I couldn't quite dig. And then recently I saw this guitar for sale on Reverb for a reasonable price. It's a used one. It was made in 2013, so it represents a little bit of an upgrade. Now, I'm not sure about this, but I have my suspicions that the Fender stopped making or sort of changed their custom shop Nocaster, which is my favorite guitar they make. And they started calling it something else now, and I think it's called the 50s Tele or something. Not exactly sure about that, but and seems like this guitar here is kind of their budget Nocaster in some ways. It's very similar, and I'll tell you how. I have a number of Nocasters, and I've measured them all very closely because I'm interested in what makes them feel good to my hands. On the Nocasters that I have that are from around 2000 or so, the depth of the neck at the nut is 0.97, and the width is 1 5/8, almost exactly right on it. 0.97. I just do it in hundredths of an inch because it's a more accurate thing. The width on this one is just a little bit more than that, but it's still 1 5/8. It's more like I can't remember exactly. It's just a skosh bigger than 1 5/8, and the depth of the neck at the nut is 0.91. So instead of 0.97 on the Nocaster, it's 0.91 on this one, which is still a pretty good size full neck. It's not skinny by any means. And the width at the nut here is the same as it is on the Nocaster, 2.03 inches, and the depth is about 0.93. So there's a slight, very, very slight graduation to the depth here. Similarly, on the Nocaster, it's 1 inch at the 12th fret and 0.97. So it's almost exactly the same, very, very small graduation. So immediately the guitar feels very close to what I'm used to and what the Nocasters from the era that I like, the 2000 era. I did notice that some Nocasters, as the years went on, were different. The necks were bigger, even up as much as 1 inch here at the nut and thicker than that. I don't care for those as much. They don't have that kind of wiggly factor. And also this neck has a little bit of flamey, cool flamey stuff. I always like a little figure in the wood, just not only because it looks good, but because it makes the neck ever so slightly softer, so that when I do the little neck wiggle, it's a little more pliant. Not to the point of it being unstable. So then next we get to the pickups. These pickups are, I believe they're Twisted Tele pickups, or so I don't know exactly what they are, but they sound good to me. The guitar is unshielded, so it makes noise when you take your fingers off the strings. That's a very easy fix. That's something that I do to all my guitars. You just paint the inside, the cavities, and the control panel and the back of the pickguard with this metallic paint, and then ground that to the ground. And it's got a standard regular Fender style bridge plate, and then it's got these uncompensated stainless steel saddles. They don't sound bad, but you know, they don't intonate bad either. They're not bad. So for $700, which is about what I paid for this, instead of 23 or 24 or 25 or even 3 something, I've seen some no-casters go for it. Everybody's trying to get too much for them, but you can often get them for in the neighborhood of around $2,000 or a little bit less if you're crafty on eBay. Anyway, so then you can have a good, and by the way, this guitar weighs about 6.5 pounds. It's very light. It doesn't have much relicking on it. It's got a little bit of checking and a few little scuffs and things, which I thought they overdid it on the original ones. These are much more reasonable. They just look like a guitar that's been hanging around. And it's also a nitrocellulose lacquer. So it's got a lot of very nice features that the old no-casters had, which is something that for somebody like me who likes them and wants to have a few backups in various iterations of it, to know that there's an inexpensive guitar being made by Fender that actually can be set up to play well and sounds good is really a great thing. 7 1/4 radius. The fret job's okay, not great. The frets are medium, they're not jumbos. I think I might have to dress these frets a little bit. I have a special method of dressing the frets ever so slightly flatter above the 12th fret, so you can get the action down a little lower and not have fret out problems. That's a special secret. Everybody's hearing it here for the first time. But enough talking. I'll play a little bit of something, and you can hear that this guitar sounds very nice. Let's see. Okay, so it gets all the cool, Tele sounds. I'm not really in the mood for too much chicken picking today, but I'm living up on the neck pickup a lot. Very nice, really good news for my students and people who are interested in getting a good, decent Telecaster without a lot of bells and whistles, but just a straightforward guitar that sounds good and plays good. So now, as far as the playability is concerned, the nut on this guitar needs to be cut a little bit more. I put heavier strings on than the person had on it before. So I get this guitar out of the box, and the guy's selling it. So I'm figuring he probably doesn't want it anymore. Clearly doesn't want it anymore, and you can guess that maybe doesn't sound as good or play as good or something as another favorite guitar of his. So I get this thing out of the case and I try it, and the action is quite high. The strings are, quite skinny. And so obviously it just doesn't feel very good. It feels like a banjo or something, because the action's high and the strings are thin. And so thin strings on a Telecaster, unless you use a compressor or a lot of gain, don't sound so good. I mean, it's just one of the problems with Telecasters, and I think part of its reputation of being a bright or shrill sounding guitar is that people always want to put nines on it, and then it just twinks out and it doesn't really work. But if you put, like I have on here, 11 to 49, it's just a regular Diodario 11 to 49 set. It's the lightest set that I use. I use a couple of sets that are slightly heavier than this too. But then I put the heavier strings on, straighten the neck a little bit, lower the action quite a bit, and then the next step is to cut the nut. And this thing is like a Ferrari, you know, it really feels great. Of course, it's not going to be, you know, a shredder or anything, because I don't play that kind of music. I play jazz and blues and warm music, and I want to hear the fat, warmer side of the guitar. Although I play sometimes, you know, I'll play, you know, kick it back to the rear pickup and tear it up a little bit. But anyway, just a little trick if you're trying to play jazz or chord style guitar on a Telecaster, do yourself a favor and put 11s or even 12s on it, and then lower the action down really nice. If you're not doing a lot of string bending, then the 7 1/4 radius really is favorable, because the fingerboard kind of comes up to meet the curvature of your hand, and it makes chord playing quite a bit easier. The string spacing on a Telecaster is just perfect. I'm used to it, so just because I get all these double stops with the tips of fingers, you know, and if the strings are too far apart or too close together, it's just different, you know. But it's wider to 2 3/16 over here, string spacing 2 3/16, so plenty of room for getting your fingers in here. So anyway, that's just my latest report on the Fender Road Worm Telecaster. Now remember, this is a newer one, and they're making them just a little more. I think they listened maybe to what people were saying. They still need a little help in the setup department. Of course, just about every Fender guitar I've ever played, coming right out of the factory, like you'd find at the guitar stores, they don't play very well compared to what I like. And of course, I over the years have, you know, come to my own conclusion about what I'm willing to compromise on in terms of playability and sound, etc. This Road Worm needs a little help in the nut department and in the action department, of course, all that stuff. Of course, every guitar does. So then you just do that, and then you have a nice Blackguard Telecaster that looks great, weighs less than 7 pounds, and sounds really nice. Okay, so there it is. There's my little report on the Fender, the newer Fender Road Worm Telecaster.